So this is how it begins, not with a play drawn up on a clipboard, not with a buzzer beater or a pre-game pep talk, but with a truth bomb dropped live on television that shook the very foundation of franchise. When Sophie Cunningham took the mic after a brutal loss, no one expected what came next. What she said didn't just echo across social media. It detonated inside locker rooms, splashed headlines across ESPN, and sparked conversations from casual fans to league insiders. This wasn't a soundbite, it was a battle cry. Cunningham didn't hold back. She spoke from the gut, and in doing so, she lit a fire the WNBA hadn't seen in years. It started with brutal honesty. Cunningham stared straight into the cameras and said what most were too scared to whisper. This Indiana Fever team is wildly inconsistent, and it's wearing thin. They dominate one night, fall apart the next. She wasn't pointing fingers. She was asking the question every fan had been screaming at their TVs. Why are we not being consistent? No more fluff. No more excuses. It was the rawest anyone had been in weeks. The tone in her voice wasn't frustration. It was urgency. And when she said it, you could almost hear the momentum of the season shift, like a storm gathering over Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But what truly made jaws drop was when Sophie boldly declared on live TV, "No more motion offense." One line, that's all it took. That sentence wasn't in the playbook. It came straight from the heart. And suddenly, every Indiana Fever player, coach, and fan had to face a harsh reality. This team had been stuck in the same predictable sets, stuck in the same stale rhythm. And Sophie, she was done pretending everything was fine. She wasn't muttering it in practice. She said it loud, proud, nationally. It was a mic drop moment heard around the league, and Caitlin Clark wasted no time reposting it with just one line. 100% with you. That solidarity, that shook the WNBA to its core. The ripple effect was immediate. Kelsey Mitchell cracked a knowing smile during Sophie's interview, because finally, someone said what they'd all been thinking. Sydney Colson turned it into a meme, but even that had a note of reverence. Teammates weren't mad. They were relieved. For too long, they tiptoed around the problem, hoping it would fix itself. Sophie ripped the Band-Aid off in front of millions. And just like that, the locker room didn't feel tense. It felt honest. Fans flooded social media with praise. Twitter exploded. Reddit threads surged. Finally, one post read, "Someone isn't afraid to speak up." Sophie wasn't just talking. She was leading. And while everyone was still reeling from her words, Sophie doubled down. She didn't just deliver speeches. She delivered wins. In the preseason opener, with Caitlin Clark sidelined, Sophie stepped up and sank the free throws that forced overtime. Indiana won by 5. She dropped 16 points and grabbed 10 boards against Atlanta, her first double-double of the season. This wasn't just talk. This was action. Kelsey Mitchell summed it up perfectly. That's Sophie. She's a dog. Coach Stephanie White echoed the sentiment. She's a competitor. The league took notice. And Sophie Cunningham, the mid-season trade nobody saw coming, became the heartbeat of Indiana's revival. What's astonishing is that Sophie didn't come in demanding the spotlight. When she landed in Indiana in January, she was just supposed to be a piece of the puzzle. A veteran shooter brought into balance a young roster. But what the Fever got was something far greater. Sophie saw the raw potential, the unfinished masterpiece. She looked at the trades, the rookies, the fan base starving for something to believe in, and she didn't see chaos. She saw destiny. Heck yeah, she said. We're about to go win a championship. That wasn't delusion. That was fire. And that fire started spreading fast. Inside the locker room, things changed. Sophie wasn't the loudest, but she was the realest. During a blowout loss to the Valkyries, she didn't sugarcoat it. We're running out of time, she warned. Her words carried weight because they were backed by sweat, grit, and sacrifice. In the huddle, she challenged teammates. In the media room, she challenged the narrative. And on the court, she put her body on the line, diving for loose balls, challenging post players, refusing to stay down. When she got knocked to the hardwood, she laughed it off, not out of arrogance, but because she refused to let pain define her. And then came the moment that made her legend. In a heated matchup against Connecticut, Caitlin Clark was shoved, poked, provoked. The refs didn't call it. The crowd booed. But Sophie, she didn't wait. She stormed across the court, got in J.C. Sheldon's face, and in a moment that felt more hockey than basketball, tackled her. It was chaos. It was electric. She got ejected. She got fined. But she got something else too: respect. The fans erupted. Teammates stood. Social media exploded. In that moment, she wasn't just a player. She was a protector. Caitlin Clark's enforcer. And suddenly, her Fever jersey became the top seller in the league. What makes Sophie Cunningham so magnetic isn't just her stats. It's her soul. She brings the energy. She brings the sass. She brings the Midwestern grit. After another double-digit win, she joked on the radio, "Indiana fans are feisty. They're sassy, just like me. That personality, it's infectious. But underneath it is a relentless work ethic. She leads warm-ups, talks through rotations, checks in on teammates, posts up in practice like every rep matters. And all of it builds something bigger, a culture, a championship culture. The kind of thing Indiana's been chasing for years. And through it all, Sophie remains grounded. Born in Columbia, Missouri, she grew up as a multi-sport prodigy. Taekwondo black belt at 6, football team kicker in high school, all SEC legend at Missouri. When she joined the league, she was tough, but when she joined the Fever, she became unbreakable. That 4-team trade didn't just relocate her, it released her. Now, with Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and a retooled roster, Sophie Cunningham isn't playing for minutes. She's playing for a mission. And that mission? To drag this team into greatness, even if she has to do it by sheer force of will. That mission became crystal clear every time Sophie stepped on the court, not just with her hustle, but with her voice. She wasn't just leading in transition, she was leading in the locker room, in the film sessions, and in the culture being shaped behind the scenes. The Fever weren't just playing games anymore, they were being rebuilt from the inside out, and Sophie was a blueprint. She wasn't afraid to challenge teammates, to call out complacency, or to spark uncomfortable conversations if it meant getting better. Her impact wasn't measured by minutes played. It was measured by moments created, moments that forced this team to grow up, toughen up, and fight harder. Teammates started to respond, not just in press conferences, but in the way they carried themselves. You could see it in the fire of Kelsey Mitchell's fourth-quarter bursts. You could feel it in Caitlin Clark's decision to repost Sophie's now infamous mic drop moment with a firm 100% with you. That wasn't just endorsement, it was alignment. Veterans and rookies alike realized Sophie was holding up a mirror and daring them to face it. Even players who've been quiet all season began speaking out, defending their squad, demanding more, playing with new edge. This wasn't chemistry, it was combustion, and it was changing the Fever's identity game by game. The coaching staff couldn't ignore it either. Stephanie White, a seasoned tactician, saw it happening in real time. During huddles, all eyes were shifting, first to the clipboard, then to Sophie. She was the emotional barometer. When Sophie was locked in, the team was unshakable. When she called out a lack of effort, practices got louder. She wasn't undermining authority, she was reinforcing it. And that kind of buy-in is rare. Front office executives like Amber Cox saw it too. In interviews, they went from calling Sophie a valuable shooter to the X Factor. They understood that in a league built on momentum, Sophie was a spark plug nobody had seen coming. But it wasn't just basketball IQ or leadership that set Sophie apart. It was her connection to the fans. Unlike so many stars who keep their distance, Sophie leaned in. After games, she'd stay and sign autographs until security nudged her out. She'd hop on local radio and crack jokes about Midwest humidity. She made jokes, told truths, and embraced Indiana like it was her hometown. Fans noticed. Her jersey started selling out. Her social media following exploded. Kids wore headbands to Fever games just to be like Sophie. And when she threw herself into the Sophie Cunningham Classic, a showcase for overlooked high school girls, it became clear this wasn't just an athlete, this was a movement. And that movement had weight. Because while others talked about growing the game, Sophie lived it. She fought for teammates. She fought through injuries. She fought the status quo. Every time she laughed after hitting the floor, every time she stood up for Caitlin Clark, every time she refused to back down from a challenge, she was sending a message, not just to her team, but to the league. This is what accountability looks like. This is what leadership sounds like. And this is what the new WNBA energy feels like. Sophie didn't need a title or a captain's band. She earned her voice the hard way, and now no one dares to ignore it. The coaching staff sees it. The front office knows it. General Manager Amber Cox called her a fierce competitor. Coach Stephanie White called her an X Factor. And Caitlin Clark? She said it best. Her energy is unmatched. That alignment across teammates, coaches, and fans is rare. But Sophie earns it daily, with every hard foul, every sharp quote, every rebound in traffic. She's not playing for headlines. She's playing for pride, for Indiana, for a team she believes can go all the way. But here's the twist. Sophie Cunningham's rise wasn't manufactured. It wasn't calculated. It was real, and that's what makes it unstoppable. In a league where players often tiptoe around controversy, Sophie sprinted into it. She took a mic and told the truth. And in doing so, she became the voice of a franchise, the soul of a locker room, and the fire the Fever didn't know they needed. The question now isn't whether she'll keep leading. It's whether the league can handle what happens when she does. So whether you're a fan, a critic, or someone just discovering this team, remember this moment. Because when the Indiana Fever rise, and they will, history will trace the spark back to one voice, one woman, one live TV moment that said enough is enough. Sophie Cunningham didn't ask for permission. She took the mic, took the hits, and took control. And the WNBA? It hasn't been the same since. And it may never be the same again. Because when Sophie Cunningham grabbed that mic, she didn't just criticize the system. She disrupted a culture. She didn't whisper behind closed doors. She screamed into the void and forced everyone to listen. That moment, raw, unfiltered, and dripping with defiance, became a turning point not just for the Indiana Fever, but for women's basketball as a whole. You could feel it ripple through the airwaves, bounce across locker rooms, and simmer in front offices across the league. It wasn't just a wake-up call for Indiana. It was a signal to every team still sleepwalking through the season. Adapt or get left behind. And now, the Fever are played with purpose, with teeth, with identity. Sophie didn't just inject fire. She gave this team a spine, a voice, a backbone. In practices, there's urgency. In games, there's grit. The same team that used to fold in the third quarter now plays like they've got something to prove every single minute. And they do. They're proving that heart matters. That culture wins games. That leadership can't always be scripted. It has to be lived. Sophie isn't chasing highlight reels or box scores. She's chasing transformation. And anyone watching can feel it. This team has turned a corner. But transformation comes with resistance. Not everyone loved what Sophie did. Some media critics called it reckless. Some insiders whispered that airing frustrations on national television could create division. But here's the truth they're missing. This wasn't about ego. This was about evolution. Sophie didn't point fingers. She held up a mirror. And while uncomfortable at first, that reflection became the foundation of something real. Teammates didn't rebel, they rallied. Coaches didn't panic, they pivoted. And fans, they didn't flinch. They leaned in because deep down they knew this league needs more voices like hers, not fewer. And maybe that's the most important part of this entire story. Sophie Cunningham didn't just take a stand for herself. She took a stand for what the WNBA could be. In a league that often struggles for mainstream recognition, she gave people a reason to care. Not with gimmicks, not with headlines, but with truth, with heart, with unapologetic leadership. That's rare, that's risky, and that's what creates legends. It's the kind of story that gets told years from now, when rookies ask how the culture changed, and someone will say, it started with Sophie, when she said what nobody else would. So here we are, a team reborn, a player redefined, a league re-energized, and it all traces back to one moment, one voice that refused to stay silent. The Indiana Fever are no longer just a rebuilding squad with a flashy rookie. They're a movement with a mission, and at the heart of it is a woman who believes in something bigger than basketball. Sophie Cunningham didn't just call out the motion offense. She called out complacency, silence, and fear. And she replaced it with belief, courage, and fire. The kind of fire that spreads. The kind of fire that changes everything. And now that it's burning, there's no putting it out.